kind of giving me a lead in. So you are a professor at Princeton, but you're Russian literature, music.
Yeah.
Curious how you get from that to Roxy Music to Stevie Nicks.
Um, it's the answer is it comes via the ballet. No, I grew up listening to that stuff. I absorbed an awful lot of popular music, as well as being a student of, so-called classical music and a bass player. And although, I had this kind of upbringing listening to stuff that everyone was listening to, but my father was really heavily into, Richard Strauss and Wagner and various soundtracks done by romantic composers. And so I was all about music of all different kinds. But when I went to school in Canada, University of Toronto and McGill, I got really hooked on Russian music, primarily because of the fact that so much of it was censored and sealed off at that time. And Prokofiev, who sort of became my point of focus, he's a composer. He's like the first introduction to serious music for a lot of people because of Peter and the Wolf,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and obviously Romeo and Juliet and his gorgeous scores. But so much of his biography and a lot of scores were just taboo. They were kind of sealed up in an archive in Moscow, and I just got really hooked on this problem, and that drove an enormous amount of my life. And then basically what happened is, I had a lot of different teachers that did a lot of different stuff, and they were really inspiring in different ways. And so when I decided, I actually didn't like opera very much.
With you.
But I love ballet. It was like a drug.
Yeah.
I actually got, to write about the Russian ballet. With popular music, I mean, these two things are, it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate cliche that a lot of people in my racket, profs, at a certain point in their career, they're like, you know what, we're going to teach a course on the Beatles, and you see them, la, yeah, yeah. And this kind of midlife crisis thing, right, that goes on.
Okay.
In the case, though, of Brian Ferry, whom, I listened to those albums growing up and was puzzled by them and was taken by Avalon when I was 12 years old, 13 years old. That is a connection through Prokofiev, strangely, because I noticed that Brian Ferry, over the course of his career, done an awful lot of cover tunes, Dylan, Cole Porter, etc. And I got involved in a ballet reconstruction project, which was by Cole Porter. And he did a ballet about immigration restrictions in the United States called Within the Quota. And right after Trump's election, I was encouraged to mount a kind of little protest project. So I restored that score. And I was talking to one of the Prokofiev estate lawyers about my work on Prokofiev. And I mentioned I was doing this project, and he said, "Oh, you should run it by Brian Ferry." And I'm like, "Why that?" I mean, that's fascinating to me. But he knew Brian Ferry's lawyer, so he put me in touch. And the idea initially was that I was going to do this ballet reconstruction project and hand that over to Brian Ferry, and then he was going to do one of his Jazz Age tours, incorporating this Cole Porter ballet music with Cole Porter songs. So that was the plan. I worked up the whole thing. And then the Cole Porter estate said, no. They were not into that at all, because they didn't want the ballet score, broken up and interspersed with songs, which is what Brian wanted to do. So I went ahead and we staged the ballet independently with our students, but I maintained a connection with him. And then he had me write some program notes for a Jazz Age album, which for me was a bit of homework, because I had to listen to it and actually think about his inspirations and write these notes for him. And then he sent me 2 cases of wine, which I don't really drink wine. I'm more of a beer person, but they got these 2 cases of wine, and my wife came and looked at them. She's like, "Holy," she's like, they were extremely, they were dropped off at this door, and she was very happy for a few weeks with that. And then I continued, and then I Bloomsbury 33 Third series, which does those short books of 33,333 words each. They asked me to do something on Brian Ferry because they heard about this connection. And then I thought, well, I'll do Avalon because I was interested in the making of that one, and its production being more important than pitch or anything else, kind of an aspect to it, and as a really curated sound. So that I wrote that up for that, and that's it. And he was actually, when I wrote it, the unexpurgated version was a lot more pointed about a lot of stuff, but because he'd given me some interviews and had shared a lot of archival stuff and the studio and photographs and stuff, I sent him a draft of it, and he was panicked about some of the racier aspects of it. I said, there's a kind of like soft porn quality about this, and this was some deeply offensive. So
well, yes, it is. This is Roxy music we're talking about.
But the idea of calling it porno versus
okay, yeah, he did not like that word.
I don't know. Maybe I don't have the thesaurus, but to me it was like it was always on the edge, right? And you don't know with him. There's that great line in For Your Pleasure, right? Half truths, part truth, part real, like anything, and that's kind of him. And it's always on that line that he loved to sort of toggle. And so it was always pushing the boundaries, both in terms of sensual, erotic becoming something else, exploitative. And, there was always, in terms of the louche kind of self-image that he created for himself as a kind of, what did Sacha Farrer Jones call him, a sort of highfalutin sleaze kind of embodiment, this kind of, you don't know if it's serious or not. And then at a certain point, that question doesn't matter, because he created an image and he sort of lost himself in it. It's a mixture of many different things, including film noir, So, but I wrote that book. They've edited it, just complained about a few little things, corrected some facts, and it came out. And then all of the Roxy music people in the forums complain about it.